It's a pleasure to welcome to High Performance Mary Portas. Welcome along.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here.
Thanks for making the time. We always start with the same question to all of our guests. In your mind, what is high performance?
Well, for me, and the way that I work, high performance is a group of people. It's certainly not me as an individual. It might be in my head, but it's about creating an environment that is conducive and creative and stimulates and pulls together a group of people. And I put culture right at the heart of it. It's probably the most important thing, that drives a symbiotic energy together to reach a goal that you all believe in. Not some goal that you've just put up there that might be a number, but a goal that you believe in. And that to me is high performance at its best. And I've been in times where it's happened and I actually feel like I'm in some sort of energy connection in your body. You feel it happening. And there are times you can just feel it when you're all together. And it's wonderful. It's where you're totally aligned and in your vortex.
So when we talk then about a positive culture, a culture that makes you feel alive and feel in the way you've just described, what is that culture that really kind of gets you going?
Well, I think, and I don't want to, the word gets bandied about so often, purpose, but I think one has to have a shared philosophy or purpose or goal. I think that is vitally important. And as I say, I don't think it's just we're going to make X amount, but it might be we're going to make X amount by a certain time, and you might find that is your shared purpose and everybody does whatever to achieve it. For me, that's never been the case, but it's because I always believe if you have a really focused purpose that you believe in together and you believe in what you can deliver as a team of people, then the money comes. It's a byproduct. And I've always done that, even in selling. I've never, ever, in my whole career in retail, looked at what I'm selling. I've created something that connects with people, and the byproduct is that
so
they
you
buy.
were about the process, not the outcome?
Totally about the process. And that comes from what I can describe as a collaborative energy. And if you have a drain within that and not a radiator, it can stop the whole engine moving in the direction that you need. I can't even remember what your question was because I've probably gone off a tangent, which I do a lot, let me tell you.
There's a lovely line in your new book, Mary, where you say that one of the great coaching questions you use is start where you are. You're never more empowered than the moment that you're in. So would you tell us a little bit about where you are at the moment with this?
Well, that quote actually came from Pema Chodron, who's a Buddhist nun, and everyone's like, well, are you a Buddhist? No, but if you look at the teachings of Buddhism and you look at so many of the great philosophers, it's where, there's centuries of this, Socrates walking around the agora, there's a reason this great intellects and thinking has motored so much of us today and is still relevant. Where I am is just now. I mean, I don't look any further than that. I don't do 3-year plans and I don't do 5-year plans. I do where am I now and where do I believe we can get to, but I don't put a time scale on it. And where I am now is sort of post-COVID, which I think most people are. I don't know whether we'll ever completely be post-COVID, but I'm in a place of acceptance and resilience and actually huge excitement because I know there's change happening and it's probably the biggest change I've ever seen in my lifetime, and I'm glad it's in my lifetime. And I think there's going to be such incredible entrepreneurship that's going to come out of this, and I hope I'm one, even though I'm 60.
Can you explain to us, though, how you've got to that point? Because I think it's brilliant to sit here and have a really positive, optimistic conversation with someone. But we have a lot of messages from people who are telling us that actually they're still kind of trudging through the post-COVID sludge, and even if the world has changed, their mindset hasn't followed. So what have you been doing to get yourself to this point of not just acceptance, but excitement about where we're at now?
Well, it didn't start like that, I mean, I think the first chapter in my book is, there I was, and I was actually in Australia when this first hit. And people were talking about, something's happened in China. And, we all got on a flight, didn't think any of it, no masks, got back to London. And within a very short space of time, we were in a place where we had to shut down our office, shut down our business. All my clients are retailers or brands that are associated with selling. And overnight, I think within the space of 4 weeks, went to 50% drop in business. Just like that. And I think we have to remember that none of us know anything that we know now. No one knew what was going to happen. This is before Sunak was talking about furloughs. No, we were all, what the hell is happening here? And the first thing was complete fear, utter fear. It is, I've always been the breadwinner in my family, and there I was with 3 kids under one roof. I mean, one was totally financially secure on his own, one was doing her master's, and I have a little 8-year-old. And, 60 staff that were going, how are we going to do this? I mean, it was debilitating, actually, first of all, because it was like driving in the fast lane on a motorbike without a helmet, and then you hit the wall. That's all I can describe it as. And so all the learnings and all that I'd done and all the psychology and that I brought into my life and the teachings, I just couldn't pull on them. I just couldn't. And I actually felt let down myself. And I remember even standing in my bathroom and looking at myself, and I think physically I changed. I was like, what's happened to you? And I even remember sending out an email to all people who were saying, do you want a Zoom call? We're doing a dance tonight and drink. And I'm like, sorry, what world are they in that I'm not in? And all of this. And I remember writing to about 15 of my friends and saying, leave me for the moment, will you? Just
really?
Oh, yeah. And I sat with it. I just sat with it physically through my body. I let it come through each time. And came to this place of acceptance that this is. And the only way is to move forward with acceptance and knowing that change has to happen. And facing that, truly facing that, and not trying to hang on to the bank. As the boat's sailing down a different path, not only different paths, so the boat's going down the river and the river is shooting off that way, and the currents that you thought you'd normally expect, and you're not clinging onto that bank, get off the bank. And I knew that. And I had very, very, every day, every morning, 4 times a day, I spoke with my chief exec, who's a shareholder in the business, and I said, we both realised we have to change. This is probably going to be the biggest fundamental change we've ever seen. And actually then went in my head to, you are starting again. Decided that's it, you're starting again.
I like that.
No, you're starting again, Portas. This is day one. Start where you are. And on one hand, I knew I was the hospice worker. On the other hand, I was the midwife. And there was this dying culture and this business, and actually not my business. There was a dying culture everywhere. But you don't want to go completely because you need to hold on to that because there's bits of that boat that you're going to need.
Yep.
But you don't want that. You don't want that in the future. So you have to give this rebirth. And that bridging was utterly exhausting. And we did it full on for a year, completely and utterly 7 days a week, speaking every day.
Talking about, just to be specific, like changing your business, how you operate, your model, just the fundamentals.
Not how culturally I operated, because I did that about 5 years before when I wrote Work Like a Woman and realised that actually the way that I was running business was what I'd bought into as a girl in the 80s going into the retail business. And let me tell you, that culture's not particularly great. You wouldn't want to write a book on that. So that had already been done. Now, what we did is we realised about 18 months before this happened, I'd done a TED Talk. And I'd written a book called Work Like a Woman on how we should be better in business. And that I believe business has a place in the world that shouldn't be just about profit. All those tenets that we've grown up on, certainly since the 80s, and my time in work has been around fame, power, and money. That's it. That's what you recognise. Those are what success is. That's and it's still, we're still on that to a huge part. Is that really what we want in the world? And is that the only way to make money? And is that the only way to create great business? So I had done a TED Talk on kindness and how we need to shift. And I'd done it 18 months before, but I hadn't changed the way that I was advising businesses. Okay. I'd changed culturally the business within mine, but I wasn't changing the way we were guiding businesses. So if businesses came in and said, we want to do this, and that is we want to make X amount of money, and we're not really too worried if we're killing the planet, we did business with them.
Yeah.
And then within this terribly difficult time, we looked at those businesses and said, do we want to be with them? So now is the time. We are really with our flat against the wall. Do we want to rebuild, or do we want to just hang on in there and believe we can get back to where we were? And we rebuilt on the kindness economy and looked at a whole new way that we believe business should be, and saying to businesses, you want to be part of this? Then come to us, because we believe that this is going to be the future. That's truly what I believe. That doesn't mean there aren't going to be arseholes out there who don't care about the planet or don't care about people. They'll be still out there making a lot of money. I don't want to be working with them. And I believe that there's going to be a greater force that's going to change the world, and that's going to come from people who are going to be asking that of business.
Can I ask you about that line where you said that I'm starting again, I'm starting afresh? How much of what you'd done first time round in your career did you keep hold of when you decided that you were going to start again?
Oh, my resilience. My ability to, which I think has been one of the things that I've had, that just instinctively know what the next thing is going to be culturally and what excites people when it comes to, business or creativity within brands, what people want. Invariably, it's been what I've been able to do in my career, so I've kept all that.
Yeah.
I kept my humour, my madness, my speed of work. Those are parts of me when I'm totally aligned, make me feel happy and joyous. So I didn't change that. But what I changed, so that was very much me and the things that made me successful, I believe, and a huge amount of resilience, that get back up doesn't matter what. You try again, you go again, you go again. And interestingly, within your business, I saw the ones who were, the people are going to be there and are resilient enough to go, this is painful, this is hurt, but we're getting back up again.
Can we talk about resilience then? I think it's such a powerful message for people that listen to this. What built your resilience?
It's a very difficult one. I mean, of course, I had a lot thrown on my shoulders very young when my mother died when I was 16. But I think I grew up, we have these messages that come to us. I saw a father that, worked and had a great work ethic, and his friends, he came over on a boat from Ireland with a couple of friends, and, they all went got council houses. He said, I'm not living in that, and first of all, he lied and said he could drive. I mean, I'm not telling anyone to lie, but my father could tell a few fierce ones. And he couldn't drive, got a job driving while he learnt to drive, So he was always, how do I survive? How do I survive? I want better. So I think I saw that, and I mixed with a mother who believed deeply in education and getting better and doing more. Well, that's not good enough. And teaching and looking at the world in a tangential way, not just what was in front of you. So she was into poetry, she was into music, she played the violin. So this mix of this driven, crazy father and this artistic but also very driven mother, I think that came. That was part of it. I mean, my father, I remember I was talking to someone the other day, and my brother was over, and we were talking about, it was a sports day, and Michael was very good at running, and he came second in the race, and my dad was like, I was a good runner, and Michael's going, that's great, Dad, because I'll race you around the block. This is a 45-year-old man, he starts racing the 11-year-old in a pair of ordinary shoes. No such things as wearing trainers and Nike trainers in the 70s. But it was like that. You've got to race your son, who's just, got, his silver. Yeah. And so there's that huge drive that I must have seen. And then I think when my mother died, out of the 5 kids, my elder siblings were at university, and I was the one who was at home and took up the reins of running the family. And I just took responsibility very quickly. And I think if you do that young, I just thought, well, I can look after a family. I can get through this. I mean, it was terribly difficult, and I didn't do it particularly well. But I think you learn something about yourself.
We've had a lot of guests on this podcast who've had trauma at a young age, and the phrase, trauma leads to triumph. You know, it equips them with things that at the time they don't really want, because it means they've had to go through the kind of trauma you've spoken about, you know, losing your mother. But actually it gives them the tools for later life when various challenges present themselves. What do you do as a leader, both as a mother, but also as a business leader, to try and build resilience in your teams, in your family, in your children? How do you pass this on if they, thankfully, are not going through the kind of traumas that you had to deal with to build your resilience?
I think, you know, for me, often, and I still am, you know, I realise, you know, at 16 losing my mother, and at sort of 18 my father, I was like, well, I'm sort of grown up now, I need it. And I realise I have, you know, children of 26, 24 and 8, and I am constantly guiding them. You know, like, where did I think I knew it all, that I would be all right at that age? And I think resilience, I often, we underestimate how powerful we are. And I always say to people, be less tough on yourselves. We're so tough on ourselves. And also, you know, there is a great, you know, English trait as well. You know, we do put ourselves down. And I think start being kinder to yourself. We have huge powers that we leave untapped because we actually just define ourselves by how others are and where we are compared to. Stop that. This starts at school. I see it with my 8-year-old already. You see it and you think, this is just crazy. You know, you're free up until 6, 7, then you start doing this and you compare. And, you know, everything's judged in a way. And we have ideas in this world that have been set up through schooling and business that, quite frankly, are pants. And we should be re-looking at this, the way business is
Explain
run
that more.
and what success is done. Well, even our academic system, you know, you are absolutely, here are the lessons. This is what you're judged on. We've forgotten what creativity is. I mean, if you listen to the great Ken Robinson, who advised government on this, where you have to put physical into schooling, movement, creativity, that is not at all acknowledged. You're seen as an arty one, you're thrown into there.
Have you watched his TED Talk?
I've listened to him, I've seen him a couple of times. Incredible man. And then, you know, the half-wits in government didn't listen.
No.
Didn't listen. And so that's judged as what success is. So you go, well, I'm not the top of the class, I'm not academic, I'm not the best in maths, so I'm a bit shit. I hear it.
Yeah.
So already you start that. And that comes into business. I'm not the one that's maybe so numerical. I can't sit in the board meeting and analyse quickly. And so you suppress deeply your innate sense of power. And I always say to people, open that up, and believe you me, you know the answer, it's in there. When you get that gut feeling that this doesn't feel right, that's telling you something much greater than all data and numbers and the people who understand logic will.
So there's a great phrase that, you, again, in your book that really jumped out at me, Mary, when you spoke about this narrative and storytelling and how it seeps into our culture. I think you talk about narrative economics, of how the world is built on what you said, then power, fame, and money. So what do you think is the key to start changing this narrative then? How do you do it both with your 8-year-old, and how do you do it with the businesses that you're working with?
Well, the narrative I want to change straight. Well, obviously with my 8-year-old, I connect back to him, and it's not always just telling him how fantastic he is. That's not but I give him space to be able to be him, totally him.
How do you do that?
And freedom to be him. So when he comes out of school, even straight away, and you know, you see people ushering off, I'd cut back a lot of the activities, like, you know, I've got to do this class and that class. No, you don't. Be bored. Be bored. That's the most... creativity comes from boredom, and you're not going to be all entertained, and you're not going to have this, and you're not going to be able to go on digital. You're just going to sit there, and there's plenty of stuff in your bedroom, and you watch them. Just, I can hear him singing, or he'll find just an old cricket ball that has been there I don't know how long under the bed, and he'll just start playing with that or rolling it up and down. That is how you start to open up, and creativity comes back in. It's often the same in business. Give people space to be themselves. Narrative economics, for me, the big narrative that I need to change is we sold, and I've been one of the mea culpas who was very good at this, especially at my days as creative director of Harvey Nichols, is that we've told people by having more stuff and what you have defines you and shows success. And, of course, we know that. That's been the worst thing that's ever happened. You know, it's like how house prices rise when people say this is what's happening in the market. It gets talked up. And people believe, oh, my God, we've got to buy that house because, you know, the one down the road went for that. And we know that, you know, people are fleeing to the country now because and the story rolls. And it's very, very, very powerful. Very powerful. Nudge tactics. So for me, the message that has been sold within the consumer industry is if you have this bag, it's going to make your life better. If you have that dress, oh my God, that designer label, that car, that's been there for now 40 years. And we've absolutely ruined the planet in our search for more, more, more. So what's the new narrative? And the new narrative has to be around that actually, I call it status sentience, that actually a respect for the planet and a respect for how much you do spend and how you live is going to give greater status than the stuff that went before. And that's the narrative we need to get out there.
Because there's that really beautiful story you tell in your book that when I read it, it sort of stopped me in my tracks about the young girl when you were at Harvey Nichols. That I'll let you tell the story about when you walked through the office and you heard somebody cooing and you thought it was a child they were describing.
Yeah. So, you know, when I was at Harvey Nichols, you know, this was at the time when really what I would call status symbols. It was what brands did you have, what they said about you, and a huge growth in that was where the accessory market. And you know, I have to explain this because this wasn't happening in the 70s. This didn't happen in the 60s. This was really the 80s boom. You know, America was the city that you turned up to. It was like pulsating with money. I mean, you know, Trump Tower on the front of Time magazine with money. This said so much about us. So the fashion industry was booming, and actually, each season we would have to choose what designer, you know, who I was going to get behind, what campaigns we were going to create, how we were going to sell their goods. And at the time, Tom Ford had gone into Gucci, and he was like the god, you know. He was actually like a model himself. Everyone was like talking about the Gucci show. We all went to it, and it was like amazing. And he came out with this bag called the Horsebit. And I remember going, you know, meeting the team at Gucci, and you to negotiate how much we were going to buy and what we were going to put behind it to promote it. And we just created this, you know, this must-have. And I remember one day, and this was a bag, I think it was over $1,000, walking through the office. And I was going from my office, and I was going through the accounts office, and I passed this girl just talking, a young girl, and I've called her Emma in the book. And she was literally cooing about, I can't believe this has happened. It's so beautiful. And I thought, blimey, she's talking to her about a newborn. And she had a Gucci bag. And I remember thinking, oh, great, you know, look, how successful, you know. Wow, look, this is now those kids who have just been saving up to buy this. Of course, what a terrible thought. You know, how disillusioned was I?
See, but what intrigued me about that, Mary, was that how do you break that pattern? Because you were being rewarded for doing your job really well, and that was a sign of your success. So how do you think we measure our success differently now then?
Because I believe that we should, well, first of all, look at what Patagonia's doing. It's probably one of the most successful fashion brands globally. Black Friday, which every retailer hates, and it's got to be the most hideous promotional day there is, where it's just about how much stuff can we sell at a discount. Patagonia went out with ads, as did a lot of other really evolved brands, saying you don't need to buy another coat. This is completely goes against the grain of how we have marketed in the future. Repair it. Now, I went into Patagonia before, this was last November, I was in New York, and you could see these big businesses that were failing, that had fallen. I remember walking to Macy's, floor after floor after floor after floor of stuff, emptying out, sales. No one had seen the future that was changing. Patagonia was packed. People buying into their ethos and their culture and their value system. Now, their value system is based on creating stuff that is sustainable, that gives jobs to people, is not in any way abusing people. They think of the fabrics that they use that's good for the planet. And everything they do is recyclable. They have second-hand that they sell. So they create this economy that's respectful. That's the way we need to go. That is the way we need to go. And the narrative has to be this new, sexy narrative that actually having too much is gauche. And actually, I don't think that does reflect terribly well on you. So line up who wants to be there. We've got a big job to do there.
What would the 25-year-old Mary Portas have made of Black Friday?
Oh, well, I would have probably hated it, but I'd have been bloody good at it and sold more shit than they needed, quite frankly. You know, and I'd have thought, well, fantastic. I would have.
So you've been on this brilliant journey, and it sounds like the consumer is going on this journey as well. What has sparked this?
Oh, the planet's dying. We're dying. Our well-being. We are really, really obese, depressed. We have real serious health issues, and mental health issues. But lots of it started, and I talked about this in my TED talk, when you started to feel these rumblings of, you know, the Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement. We started to feel what would have voices coming out and going, what are we doing here? What way are we living here? And of course, you know, Greta Thunberg, amazing, standing, probably the most famous woman in the world at the moment, is a young woman who's going, we're buggering our planet. So all what was subcultures became these mainstream cultures, and driven very much by Generation Z, not by my generation, who are going, yes, what are we doing here? So it's been happening, and it's reached really mainstream. And I don't think there'll be anybody who doesn't think about this. That doesn't mean we're all changing our ways, but I don't think there's anybody who's sitting here today not thinking about what are we doing and how are we living.
So when you go in with your business and you're advising these retailers, what's the kind of questions that you're posing to them?
Well, first of all, what is your purpose and how are you creating that? We call it, we actually go for philosophy more, because you can write a purpose and they can stick it on their website and go out and tell everybody, yeah, but are you living it? Are you really living it? So that, first of all, is how we start to work with them. We create that philosophy with them if they haven't got it, and really try to get to the truth. And you know when you're getting greenwashing, and you know when you've got someone who's just giving you a lip service. And so we move away from that. But invariably, most businesses want to do better. They really do, but they don't know how. So that's the first thing that we start with. And then we start to take, you don't have to be totally sustainable by this. This is too big a thing for you. So we give steps on what you can do. And those steps aren't just about sustainability as well. It's about how do you treat your people better? How do you treat people that connect with your brand better? How do you put them at the centre? How do you work with communities? Because we believe that businesses should be living institutions, whether they're physical or whether they're digital. That is the role of business today. That you actually should be creating a connection with the people that is greater than just selling stuff. And so then we actually do it in a joyful way. We create a playbook for them and go, hear about these ideas. Why don't you try one of these? Why don't you test this out? And they actually have fun doing that, you know, just going, because it doesn't have to be a big, dry, totally sustainable and green and, you know, your emissions down by 2040. Why don't you start playing in this area? And once you start to do that, people, you give them to different teams that make it happen, they all start to get revved up by this.
So let me ask you a hypothetical then, because we have a range of people that listen to this podcast, and a big demographic are teachers. Now, we've touched on the Ken Robinson stuff of how to challenge the narrative within education. How could you take your approach of asking someone for their philosophy and how that can then manifest itself in a school, for example?
Blimey, you're giving me some really tough questions, aren't you?
You've got the answers, though.
Do you think I have? Let
Definitely.
me think about that. Can I just go back on my schooling? Because I remember actually the day when I stopped enjoying school, and it was one teacher who was just frightened the pants off me, which is a really horrible thing, actually. It's a really terrible thing. And my sister, well, there's 5 of us, 2 of us had this teacher, and we both remember this happening and being absolutely debilitating, and the other 3 not having it. I think for me, I think if I was running a school, first of all, I would have a very clear philosophy in the school and what that means. And I think that should encompass everything of how we treat each other, first of all. I think that is, you know, I I often look at schools and they put out there what they've achieved, and it's brilliant, and, you know, academically, and what they strive to, and what sort of pupils they want to put out into the world. But I rarely hear a philosophy that they have that is shared. And whether that's a song, I'd even make it into a song.
Right.
So that each day they started with that, and they
sing
knew.
it for us?
No, but I've just thought of that
Yeah.
idea. Actually, I might sell that to an idea for a client.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I'd make it into a song, because singing for children, and that's what Ken Robinson says, is amazing. And I know when my young son is happy, and I put him to bed and I just hear him singing. It is the most wonderfully touching thing. And we lose that. We don't sing often enough, do we? When would you feel free just to start singing in front of someone? Oh, your voice isn't good enough. Actually, but just to be free and not care. So I would probably start with the philosophy that I would put into a song, and that they start. Actually, I did come up with an idea for it. It was one of the big, really brilliant businesses with the Body Shop, on how they should start their morning, of actually in the way that because at the heart of what the Body Shop does was Anita Roddick was genius. We're talking the 70s she talked about saving the planet and not harming anyone. The 70s, right? Got bought out by L'Oreal, who actually made it as boring as batshit, and now it's been bought back out again by the people who own Aesop, which is a Brazilian company, and we got called in to work with them on that. And we actually started the team off with a mantra that they started each morning. You know, in the way the All Blacks go out and they do something, not quite as mad as that, but actually it was this commitment to the world and to the planet, that they actually connected each day. Everybody that went on that shop floor started off that way feeling, and it just gave such a wonderful energy to them, and it just broke this idea that we're here just to sell stuff.
Yeah.
Even the title sales assistant went, you know, and it was just wonderful. So I think I would start with schools. I'd think of a philosophy and I'd make it into a song, and I'd actually get the kids to sing that each day.
Now, I can understand that. We've both got young kids, same age as yours, so it makes perfect sense to us. If I'm listening to this podcast and I'm a business leader, and there's lots of those as well as teachers and things, I'm hearing everything and I'm thinking, brilliant, you know, you've seen the light, you've completely sort of transformed from the person that was all about stack 'em high and sell 'em quick in the 70s and 80s. But I'm a business leader, and I've got bills to pay, and I've got mortgages, and I've got loads of staff to look after. How do you convince these businesses when you go in with this wonderfully creative approach, which, by the way, I think it's fantastic? How do you then have the conversation about the financial side? How do you convince them that they will make money?
Because I give examples of businesses that are making money. They're making it. On my podcast, I had the Lush owner. He's crazy. He's a crazy entrepreneur. And, you know, his vision's very strong. I mean, really. But everything he does, he just doesn't give any harm, and he makes the planet better. So every choice that they make, from even where they get the salt from, is that, you know, I'm going to go for a slightly more expensive one because the salt that we choose is affecting birds in a certain area. I can't even give you the right example. One of the most profitable businesses that's grown. So, of course, and if the hard-headed businessman goes, well, no, I just want to focus in this way, then there's nothing I can do about that. Yeah. But I can show you other ways. And that is what we've done. And that is what we've done with businesses. And we show that. And there's too many examples that are just getting better. I was having the owners of Cook, which is one of those incredible little, you know, frozen food businesses. Everything they have done has put people and the planet at the heart of it. Everything. One of the most successful growing food businesses. It's happening in the fashion industry. It's happening. So, look, you fall into the give a fucks or don't give a fuck. Quite simply that. And there's a lot of don't give a fuck. So don't give a fuck, make the money. I don't, then, you know, I'm not for you, neither's my agency. And we're not all coming in going, woohoo, happy clappy. I like making money. Yeah. I really like having money. I like a nice life. And I will continue to do that. I don't want to not have money. But I also want a conscience. And I want to be able to sleep at night and go, yes, actually, I've done something that makes a difference. You want to join that? Then join us. We've got some great ideas.
And what advice for people then that want to change like you, but they go, COVID, just want to get the business stable again, get back on my feet, the time isn't right. And we talk often on this podcast, like, people always wait for the perfect moment to be brave or to put other things other than profit first. And I think if you do that, you probably never make the decision, do you?
Yeah.
So those people that are concerned about it now, what's your advice?
But it is concerning. And the thing is, you know, it's when I talk about the hospice, you know, you don't throw everything up in the air. You have to plan. You have to have a vision. You have to, and you have to believe in that. And there will be times where you go, of course you do. Even the best people, we can't say, of course, it's definitely going to work. But what will come out of it is the right outcome. And if you connect deeply with your belief system and your inner strength, that's all I can talk about, your inner frequency, which is the best guiding light in any of this, then you'll go where you're meant to go to. But if you keep feeding the short term and the fear, you will never move past that. Quite simply, you won't. That doesn't mean you chuck everything out and you haven't got to look at the bills, but you cleverly go, right. And I often used to go, what's the least I can live on? Where do we start from there? I've done that many times in my life. Literally, back of a fag packet, not a fag packet, I didn't smoke, but, literally that. How do I get by on this? I can get by on this. Just that safety so you're not silly and you just know that you need to do enough. But in the meantime, in the wings, I'm building and creating and moving forward. And actually, I find that really exciting. Just get excited by it. And also, don't be under the shadow of other people's ideas if you don't believe them. We've sold in some shit ideas in the way business should be run in the past. And they haven't worked for people. They haven't. We've seen that. They've worked for the growth economy, growth at any cost. And listen to Kate Rayworth on that, talking about that. We believed economists, and economists, quite frankly, are academic accountants. Yeah. That's what ruled the world. And actually, they were better at branding economics than they were social psychology and philosophy. We've got to bring that in. We've got to bring it in. And there will be people in business, who don't want to hear it. That's okay. That's their choice.
There's a brilliant phrase that, again, just resonates that I read in your book about elastic thinking.
Yeah.
The idea of being fluid, not being stuck in old tropes or old narratives, of doing that. What would you say for somebody that is still listening to this and maybe resistant for it? What's the simplest way of becoming elastic in your thinking that you've found where you've met these CEOs that maybe are resistant, they're in the don't give a fuck camp? What's the simplest technique you've used that starts to create a shift?
Well, I often do. If you were starting this again, what would you do? They suddenly go, no, forget what, don't want to go, don't look in the rear view mirror, last year's figures, they've all gone. It's all gone. What if you were starting this again, what would you do? Knowing what you do. Knowing what you do. Just tell me, just throw out, what would you do? What have you always wanted to do? And they start to open up and talk about, I thought we had this idea, but forget the buts. Forget the but. There's always a but. There's I put in there, we can put the logic and the data in. And we need that. We do need that. I like that. I'm with my finance director, Mark, give me the numbers. How's it backing up? I'm not sitting here going, woohoo! How many people do we need to feed? How many jobs have we got? Of course you do. But there was a wonderful piece that was the Sufi poet Rumi that just said, we know one and one makes two. And what we always forget is the and. It's the and. That it's the nuance. It's the bits in between that make life.
Yep.
That's what makes life. And creativity is so often seen as, these hipsters with beards in East London are going to give you the answers. No, it's in all of us. And we suppress it because we think we can't. And once you open up, and what COVID has taught us has been this creative, elastic thinking, because we've had nowhere else to go. And there's been such ingenuity, really ingenuity stuff that I've seen. I've gone, my God, that is so clever. And some of the digital players have really created what I thought couldn't be done as well on digitally is community and connection. And that I will just give as examples to chief execs time and time again. Time and time again. And letting some people just within the business play with the business. Take risk and fall and get back up. Put a budget aside and just go off and be risky with it. Because from that, you just get those little pieces of magic.
I love that. I love the fact that you keep mentioning this word, whether it's a playbook or go and play or be bored and then go and play on your own. There's something really quite powerful about that phrase.
Yes.
It reminds us of childhood.
Yes.
But actually you're talking about it.
Yes. Well, we do that in the playbook. We go, how much is your budget? What are you looking? How much are you spending on this? And we look at it and just go, just take 10% of that. It's a bit like when someone says, when you want to put a little bit of, investment in, can you afford to lose it? You go, yeah, okay. How much can you afford to lose? let's play with that. You know, and it's a wonderful thing because it's so controlled budgets and what, you know, they have to know what your return on investment is going to be. No, let's just take a piece and say, let's take some of that money and see, would you notice if it didn't come? No, let's play with that. And you start to give it to teams of people and we mix it up and we call what we call, you know, we actually bring people in who aren't experts, particularly in that area, and you mix them up and they come in with a different idea. So it's not just the marketing team and that's the accounts team and that's the sales team. Actually, we're going to mix them up and we're going to have what we call naive experts. I'm an expert in this, you're naive in it, but you're an expert in another area. How do we get them together and create some ideas that we think will be just cracking in the business? And then you start just testing them out.
It's brilliant. Do you know what I love about this conversation is this kind of mix of incredible experience, the fact that the way you see the world has clearly changed a lot in the last 20 or 30 years, but also like the excitement you've got for what lies ahead. I'm interested to know about your optimism then. This all sounds wonderful. How optimistic are you that this is the world that our kids are going to grow up in? These are the high streets that they're going to go to with care and with love and with compassion for each other and the planet.
Well, I am optimistic that we'll see a better future. I really do. I think, I talk about this, I think, you know, we think we've had a really great run at it because, you know, everything was economically safe. I actually think it's going to be a better world with better people. I do. I look at my kids' generation, certainly my Gen Z ones, and I just think, you're gorgeous. I wish I thought like that. How blind was I? You know, it was a consumer, just literally coma we were in. It was like that. Even the word consumer, you judge me by what I consume. I'm not looking at the person. That word's just, isn't it? You've just sort of got this sort of, you know, those little, what are those heads, those flip-top things that you just keep stuffing stuff down. I have that vision of that. So interestingly, what's come out of this is two very key things, is connection and community has become one of the most important things. And actually local high streets, when I did my report 10 years ago, and they, you know, used to say to me, have you spoken with the government, you know, Philip Green? And I'd think, well, yes, I have met him. I'm not sure I want to have his advice on what the high street will be. Knows how to make money. Knows how to make money. And actually, it was too early. But what I talked about was this connection that we need so deeply and desperately. And we've seen a rise in local high streets coming back because of COVID, what's happened, and people relied on them and they saw how important it was. And now with the growth of us sort of spending more time at home, we're going to need them even more. So
can't let it go though, can we? That's the risk.
No, you can't let it go. But you can't also go just, you know, shop it or you'll lose it, and you just end up to high streets that have got sort of random mix of, you know, chicken shops and, you know, pop-up art galleries because the shop's empty. Well, you won't want to do that. So there needs to be a proper national, I think, framework plan on it. And there's some brilliant stuff that's happening in the world. In Milan, they're looking at 15-minute cities, you know, everything within walking distance or a bicycle, for all your needs. That starts to get, I'm like, that I understand that's the way we should be going. So there's some great initiatives. It would be great if the Tory government opened their eyes up to them. But who knows?
Let's see. We live in hope.
We do live in hope, and I think that is deeply important.
Yeah. We started the conversation talking about culture. We're going to end it with our quickfire questions. And the first one is really about culture, and it is your 3 non-negotiables, not just for you, but for the people that you invite to be in your world, in your circle.
Collaboration. It's we, not me.
Yeah.
Ego codged in the corner, and we've all got a bit of an ego. I love it when you're loving it, but don't let it pull the rest down. Creativity, because I think that's got to be at the heart of everyone. Think laterally, think elastically. I don't care what department you're in or what you're working on. That's what's going to give us the answers in this. And resilience, I think.
Brilliant.
You know, resilience for me is. I will be there for you, you know, and I can tell when someone's having a tough time, and we have a great support system, but, you know, can you get back up and be in with us all together in this, I think is deeply important.
What one piece of advice would you give to a teenage Mary just starting out on this journey?
I think listen to your inner voice. The biggest mistakes I've made in my life is when I've ignored that. It's there, and it comes up. And you can rationalise and go, no, actually listen to it. It's there because actually you're equal. We're all equal. And you have great power and sensitivity and the answers inside you. You know, learn all around you, pick up. God, that's fantastic. Learn, open, but listen to that.
You've shared some lovely quotes and thoughts from various books and things. And I know you have your own podcast and your own book that we've talked about. You can't name your own on this answer, but
someone did that on Desert Island Disc,
did they?
Yeah. It was an opera singer.
She named all 7 songs, didn't she?
She did all her opera.
What, and they went with it and did the...
Yeah,
all their own
that's a tough
songs.
one doing that.
Right, well, you're not allowed to.
No,
so if I was to ask you for one book, podcast, recommendation, or a quote that you'd like our audience or our listeners to delve a bit further with, what would you go for?
Well, I am going to go for a spiritual teaching book, which I think is incredibly good. That was just great for me. And that's The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. I think is an extraordinary book. Have you read it?
No.
It's incredible.
Is it?
Yeah. It's what comes at you every day. And it's don't look at something that's good, that's bad. Don't judge it. Just go out into that world and go, right, okay, this is coming to me. And get excited by how you connect with it. Look at it. But it's much deeper than that. It's a really terrible explanation of it. It's an extraordinary book. And I have many lines where I've underlined, I think page 77 particularly. Dog-eared.
We'll go straight
And
there.
it's one that's a guiding light whenever I find I've gone off and I'm not in alignment.
Lovely.
What would you describe as your greatest strength and your greatest weakness?
And my greatest strength, well, in business, my greatest strength is the can do it and being innovative. I love and just always coming up with something new, something new. And to the extent that my team have to go, right, which one are we going to pick, or where do we work with this? And I think my greatest weakness is the detail. Sometimes I don't want to know it. I don't want to know it. And actually, I've really had to learn about that in COVID. No PA when I was in lockdown. Everything was like, what? What do I do with that? And I've really had to, and I've had to go into a very sort of still place to go, right, focus. Even today, I actually finally worked out how to do my printer.
Well done.
It's a good day. And the final one, really, and this is just kind of, I guess, a last message, really, for the audience who are enjoying this, and it has been brilliant, by the way, which is just your kind of one golden rule to leave people with for living a high-performance life.
Be generous, I think. I said be kind, and I call it the kindness kind and generous because that makes you so much bigger.
Yeah. And
people just remember that. And it just opens up. I don't know, somehow it just lifts you up. And I think, in some of my early days, you just wanted to be, the acclaimed one and recognised. And being generous and kind to other humans just it's Jacqueline Novogratz in her book, The Moral. I can't remember this. I can't remember something. Anyway, Jacqueline Novogratz's book on how to. She built back an incredible business that's give back to the world. But she talks about what were the soft skills in business. That was always the HR department, But actually being kind and loving and generous are actually the hardest things to do in business. And, we can all put on this persona. And actually, those are the most hard, but actually they're going to be the ones in the future because you need to understand humanity.
who was the lady who created the HR at Netflix? And they created the Netflix. Patty McCord. I had her talk once, and she said almost exactly the same thing. She said, people run a business, and like the HR is kind of, well, what about HR? She said, hold on, HR, hiring and dealing with the people in your business. Yeah. HR is the single most important part of a business. Totally. It's not the boring bit of the business. It is your business.
It is the business.
To describe people as human resources is so cold.
Yeah, you're right.
Human resources. Used to be personnel. Yeah, it's the people. And how you make them feel. And I think, the way we feel and how we feel about ourselves motors us. I think we forget about feeling so often. It was Jacqueline Novogratz. It was The Moral Revolution. That's what she's written. Beautiful.
Wonderful.
Beautiful piece of work.
Thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
Being so generous and...
kind.
Yeah, and kind. And it was really wonderful. Thank you.
It was lovely meeting you, Bill.
Thanks, man.
Oh, pleasure.
Please hit subscribe. Hit the notification bell, give us a thumbs up, leave a review, but somehow get involved with the High Performance Podcast and become part of our growing community. Thanks for being part of the adventure.